Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Gustav and I'm happy to see that you've taken the choice of learning more about databases and development methods around them. Now, this is a course that I've labeled Relational Entity Database course, where we'll learn how to create a database and perhaps more importantly, how to think during the development process and also how to implement your database. So we're going to be talking a little bit about conceptual modeling phases, the logical modeling, as well as the physical modeling where we'll use Microsoft SQL. So we'll be primarily working with SQL during this course. If you're looking for NoSQL, I'll probably do a course on it in the future, but for now we're going to be keeping it simple and doing the basics of it all. So, more will you learn during this course. You'll learn what an entity is, what an attribute is, what's a relationship, what's cardinality, what data types to use. So the aim is to keep these videos at around 10 to 15 minutes so that you can easily just jump onto a video, watch through it, and work out your problem that you might have or try these out on your own. I'm going to try and make these videos as logical as possible when I put them together so that they'll flow through conceptual modeling to logical modeling down to SQL. So if you're not interested in the modeling around this, I would suggest you jump over these first videos and then jump straight into the videos towards the end where we'll talk about how to implement your database by using SQL, as well as doing queries, updating tables and such. Now, we're going to start off by looking at what a database actually is. We're going to be having a whole episode. The next episode, we're going to be looking at database as well as a relational database and what sets them apart. But for now, just give your brains a little bit to think about. We'll look at sort of like a brief overview of what a database is. So here you'll see I've created a big cylinder which is labeled Relational Database Management System, or a RDBMS. Now, a Relational Database Management System is the system which your database is created within. So it might be a Microsoft SQL management server, or it might be MariaDB, whatever your choice is. You see I've written up 3 of them here. It's yours to do. Like I said, we're going to be working within Microsoft SQL Server, but any of these are perfectly fine. There might be some differences in commands used when doing the actual SQL phase, but most of them try to mimic the others, so you should be fine. So you got this database or database management system. Within that, you also have your database, which I've chosen to represent using this sad looking square, which says database. Here you will find your actual, what I used to call my mini universe. And my mini universe is made up of charts. I'll have entities, which is what I've written here as charts with data. Now, these charts with data is actually what your database is made up of. So this is where the heart of your database lies. All of these turquoise small boxes, and a database may have hundreds of these or thousands of these. This is your database. So how do you then communicate with your database? What are you supposed to do when you communicate? Well, we communicate with the database by using what we call a data definition language or data manipulation language, which is SQL. Now, I've drawn red arrows for this, so we're going to be looking at different types of users that use SQL in different ways. Now, I say we have a data definition language and a data manipulation language, what I mean is that when you insert information into the database as a developer, that's a data definition language. When you use the information and change information within a database as a user or as an administrator or perhaps even as a developer, you will be using a data manipulation language. They're both the same, but they have a different approach. We're going to dig deeper into SQL at a later date, but for the moment it's good enough for you to know that SQL is a language we use to communicate between us as people with database, which use binary computer code. So we're going to start looking at the different types of users that use these databases, and we're going to start by looking at an actual user. Now, this might be something like you and I take out my phone every day when I wake up. I might go to, I don't know, Instagram. I might go to a news website, or I might open up a crypto app. Whatever I do on my phone is going to be connected to a database somewhere in the world. Now, I might not be aware of how that database is built. I do not know, for instance, how Instagram chose to build the database around what my videos look like, what my account state looks like, what information they save around me, and how my account is connected to the rest of the Instagram database. I don't know that because, to be honest, as a user, I don't really have that much need to know that, so I'm not really interested in that. And this is where a simple user comes in. A user will interact with a database through SQL without knowing it. They will change the amount of hours that they've spent on a game. They might change for instance, I used to love playing World of Warcraft, right? Now, they obviously have a database with all of the characters, all of the account names and everything, so every time I log into World of Warcraft, I would go and do a raid. I might get a new item and take it back and exchange it for one of my old items. Now, obviously, somewhere within this database is information about my specific character under my specific account, which changes the way my helmet look, which changes the way my character take damage. So I'm not aware of this, but every time I log on, I expect my new item to be there. And this is where the database comes into play for a user. Now, we're not going to dig any deeper into this right now, so we'll move on to the next, which is a database administrator. A database administrator is the people who oversee the database management system and the database itself. Now, the primary goal for a database administrator is to make sure that your database is secure. Is your database not secure, somebody might come in and steal your information. So, the database administrator is going to have a lot of obligations on his or her shoulders to make sure that whatever information is stored within the database does not get leaked. Now, we read in the newspapers all the time that this company have their entire account information leaked. So everybody that's a customer of theirs, their information is now on the big wide web. So recently, I think it was Twitch that had their information leaked. Now, obviously, somebody gained access to their database and managed to pull all of that information from there. Now, this was probably done using some kind of script, either JavaScript or SQL injection, to pull out this information. The leak is really, really bad for a company, and it's the administrator's job to make sure that these problems do not exist. Now, a database administrator will be in charge of user accounts and passwords, and as well as I said, the security of the database. Now, when I said security, we're talking a lot about the actual virtual security, but this also extends to physical security. So, is your database secure? Is it locked within vaults? Do you have a biometrical system? Are you sure that no fire is going to ruin your entire database? Stuff like this. And these administrators might work alone if they're in a small location, but more often than not, they are going to be working in teams. So you might have a couple of administrators, all of which are focused on one or a couple of things more than the other things. So one might be responsible for the physical security of the database. One might be responsible for the security of user accounts and passwords. One might be responsible for the security of the database itself, as far as plugging holes in SQL injection goes and stuff like that. Now, something that's used by administrators to secure the database is something called views. Now, I'm not going to be speaking a lot about views at this moment. Just know for right now that views is basically access. So you can look at it like this. A CEO might have access to most information in the database, so they'll have a wide view. Now, a janitor might only have access to what rooms are to be cleaned in a hotel, and so they'll have a narrow view. By limiting the view of the users, you can limit the scope of your vulnerability. Now, this is not a course about security as per se, but it's important to mention. So, to do all of this, a database administrator have access to something known as a super user account. For all the people out there who've been using Linux, this will be familiar. But if you're not used Linux and not used a super user account, think of it like an administrative account. And it grants them access to the entire database, and so the security of this account is very important. And the last category we got here is the developers, and you can see that I've written front-end developer and back-end developer. Now, you could split this into two categories, but I've chosen to keep it in three categories for the entire database just to make it simple. So, a front-end developer is the people that work between the database and the user. So they will create the applications that's going to use the database to manipulate information. Now, this is a person who uses the database and have knowledge of the database but does not create the actual database. For that job, you have to look towards the back-end developer. Now, a back-end developer is what this course is all about. So, what you and I will look further into is the whole process behind this back-end development, as well as how we navigate the different paths that can take you to an end product. Now, essentially, what front-end developers are doing is working with languages such as C++ and Java, and they'll use SQL code within these programs. Now, what a back-end developer do is they go all the way from creating a conceptual model, which is a rough draft of how the database should look like, and what's included in it. As you can see here on the picture, you have three boxes. One is a customer, one is a sale, and one is an employee. And you can see that the customer and the employee both point towards the sale. What we mean by this conceptual model is that to create a sale, you need a customer and you need an employee. Now, this is a very rough draft. This is not meant to be taken as, oh, we can implement this. This is perfect. No, this is a very rough draft of how a conceptual model might look like. Now, after you've done a conceptual model, it's time to create your logical model. Most of the work, I should say, will go into creating a conceptual model and a logical model. This is where most of the work that you do as a backend developer will end up. During your logical models, you will put forward stuff like attributes, and I know some people like to put this in a conceptual model, and it's customary sort of to put your primary key in the conceptual model to show the customer or the organization that you're working for what an important unique ID might be. But for the purpose of this, we're just gonna keep it like this. So a logical model will put forward all of the attributes. It will put forward the primary key, and it will also put forward foreign key, which we have not included in this but should have. Also, during your logical model, you're supposed to flesh out all the relationships and the cardinality and stuff we haven't talked about yet, which is the reason I have not included these in here. Now, the last layer is the physical model, and as you can see here, we are including stuff like integer and varchar, which is data types. So once you reach your physical model, you are basically implementing your model into a database. So with that said, I would like to thank you for watching today. I know this grew a little bit longer than intended, but I hope to see you